What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, Nintendo uploaded this mysterious trailer that absolutely shocked the internet because it goes completely against what we expect Nintendo to present to us, and now everyone's just trying to figure out exactly what they're up to here because it seems that they're preparing a new horror game, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about games for PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium with some nice surprises for the Classic Collection. And then, of course, Bloodborne. Yes, there was another tease, and somehow this actually made its way out of PlayStation Stars. You know, the service that was down for like a month without Sony saying anything. Well, it came back with a bit of a vengeance. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're gonna start today with a new partnership between Sony and Pocket Pair, the studio behind Palworld, which is very odd to see this one pop up, but we can see this posted up. This is over on Komatsu, where they say Sony Music Entertainment Japan, subsidiary Aniplex, and Palworld developer Pocket Pair have announced the establishment of Palworld Entertainment, a joint venture that will be responsible for developing the reach of the intellectual property and for expanding commercial business endeavors, including the global licensing and merchandising activities associated with Palworld outside of the game. This kind of reminds me a bit of the Pokemon company that's made up of several different companies, right? Like Nintendo, Creatures, Game Freak. Sony, I guess, just tapping, in this case, Pocket Pair with Palworld and then Aniplex, sort of create their own little joint venture here. And a lot of it seems to come down to merchandise around the Palworld IP. It's been incredibly successful since the moment it came out, and it's not on PlayStation yet, which is sort of funny with this partnership now being formed, but it seems like something that will inevitably happen when it's ready to launch in 1.0, as it's still in early access, and Microsoft just has a way for that to basically be published on the Xbox, even going into Game Pass for this one. So that's mostly what they're gearing up for now, as mentioned in the press release. A lot of merchandising, so we'll see how that one fares for them, as it looks like even some more current events coming up that they'll be attending. I guess they'll have all kinds of Palworld merch for people to pick up. Also, we did just talk about Microsoft shaking things up for the Game Pass tiers, with one tier not getting day one releases immediately. It seems like it's going to take some time for those to go in, and that is a big question now, is how long will that be before a new release comes out for it to then go into the Game Pass standard tier? Well, we can see this is posted up by Jez Corden, who says they told me, this being Microsoft PR, case-by-case basis, between 6 and 12 months and sometimes longer. Microsoft really likes the phrase case-by-case basis for pretty much everything, whether it's these timed exclusives, these exclusives, sometimes their messaging isn't great, and it continues to be poor in this instance for Game Pass Standard, which is $14.99 versus Game Pass Ultimate at $19.99. The day one releases clearly is the big driving force for Game Pass Ultimate. I mean, originally it was just Game Pass in general, day one releases, but they've changed it up now drastically. Even at $14.99 a month, they feel that just the back catalog of games that they have is enough to hold that service up, along with just online play on the Xbox. But it's so strange because I guess it's going to be like, hey, here's Avowed, and someday it'll go into standard. We don't know when, there's no set terms, but at some point, a year from now, a year and a half from now, it'll be announced to be going into standard, and I guess they'll make that a whole thing. But it's just, this whole thing still seems very, very weird with how Microsoft is approaching Game Pass, and it just got a lot weirder. Oh, and speaking of Game Pass, it does appear that they will at least have a big announcement here pretty soon. In fact, it could happen as soon as today, which we can see this over on Insider Gaming, saying Microsoft set to launch Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 in Xbox Game Pass later this month. They go on to say that it could be as soon as yesterday for this write-up. So, I mean, you can look out for that happening at any point in time, again, as soon as today even. And this is the Call of Duty that came out last year. And this would technically be the first Call of Duty game to go into Game Pass, obviously with the Activision Blizzard acquisition. We assumed Call of Duty would make a big push into Game Pass. We're still waiting for that. This, I guess, would be the way that they'd really set things off, and then, of course, go into Black Ops 6. And then maybe they'll just have this drip feed of Call of Duty games alongside of other Activision titles into the service. But yeah, it seems like the most recent Call of Duty game would be the first one to go in ahead of seemingly Black Ops 6 this holiday. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and this mysterious trailer that they posted up online yesterday, which we can see this is over on Twitter X, where they posted on their official account just saying, who is Emio? At least that's what I'm going with. This is a situation of we're just looking at the name. We don't necessarily know how to pronounce it. So I'm excited for the Titus discourse around what probably ends up being a weird pronunciation for this. But I'm going with Emio for this one. But it was a quick trailer. It was like 15 seconds long, and they didn't really explain much other than just apparently this, I assume, being Emio. And there was some writing in there as well that translates over to smiling man, and you see the person here with the paper bag that is changing expression, where it's kind of like a big grin and then almost a laughing grin sort of. So yeah, obviously the writing and stuff matches up there, but this is clearly leaning in the direction of a horror game. And now that it has an official page on Nintendo's website, we're kind of assuming it. I mean, at this point, the way that they're treating this and the fact that originally they had their social media links and stuff in the description for this game over on their YouTube account, this would be a first-party IP. We still don't know what the game's called. I assume it's not called Emio, or Who is Emio, but this is interesting for multiple reasons. One, we don't really know Nintendo as a development company or studio or whatever for creating horror games. Like, we don't really think of them as, oh, Nintendo EPD is going to create, this next Silent Hill-like game, and it's going to be mature rated. And typically they would take something like this, maybe create the IP and then own it, and then have another studio come in outside of Nintendo to make it. Something like Eternal Darkness. Okay, that I understand, but this could actually go the way of Nintendo developing this internally. That would really be an interesting thing to see. At this time, I'm going to assume that it is being contracted out to just an outside studio. In fact, some were initially thinking this could have been Bloober Team's game, as it seems that they are working on something with Nintendo. But the timelines don't really match up, and some have already disproven that and said, no, this is not a Bloober Team game. So at this point, we're kind of left in the dark as to who is making this. But I really like the way that this has been presented because it leans into the idea of there being mystery around a what I kind of am viewing as a psychological horror game. But this is the way you try to market a game and create intrigue. Now with like how we're all connected with social media and it's very easy for things to just kind of get out there through even leaks. This has actually worked out for them very, very well because someone, didn't come out and say, hey, Nintendo's going to do some weird thing with a horror game and this is who's developing it. This is when it's coming out. This is what it is. We didn't have that get out there. And now that at least this trailer is thrown out there, the 15 seconds or so, people are starting to talk about this, and it's a nice mystery to try to solve as they go along, seemingly with this marketing campaign, which I assume to be just more random trailers here and there. So I do like them seemingly trying something what's mostly new for them. Again, they've done some horror stuff in the past, but this feels very different for Nintendo. And just, I like the way that they're leaning into a more modern strategy for marketing this thing. It does feel kind of like, as we've heard Miyamoto mention, that a newer generation within Nintendo is sort of working their way up the ranks right now behind the scenes for development and marketing. That's what this kind of feels like, is a younger generation maybe coming in that's more aware of social media and how all of that works in order to navigate that with something like this, because I am very curious as to what exactly we're dealing with here. It's been shown to be mature rated. It looks kind of like a Silent Hill psychological horror style thing from the 15 seconds we've seen. So I'll be keeping an eye on this one, but let me know your best guess as to, I guess, who is Emio. Emio. Again, going with Emio. Let me know what you think about this one, though, because there's gonna be a lot of discussion around exactly what Nintendo is planning here. Next up, let's talk about PlayStation Plus for the month of July. This would be for the extra and premium tier. We can see this over on PlayStation Blog. Starting at the top, these games will become available July 16th, so next week. And it is indeed going along with that leak that we had already gone over from Bill and D-Labs, which Remnant 2 right at the top here. And then we have Final Fantasy VII Reunion Crisis Core, Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord, the Jackbox Party Pack 9, Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, No More Heroes 3, again, a good one there alongside of Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes Complete Edition. If you have not checked out No More Heroes 3, this is a very good version to play on the PlayStation 5. Then we have Deadcraft, that's on the PS4, so backwards compatible on the PS5. And then Steep, which is a PlayStation Plus re-release, as they note here with the little star next to it. Moving up, we do have PSVR 2 with Job Simulator. So at least they're trying something there. You may as well get VR games in here just to do, just anything you can to get people looking at that headset. Although, as we've kind of talked about multiple times now, it does seem like even Sony are kind of losing interest, backing away from it. But who knows, maybe the PC scene will reinvigorate that headset. Moving up to the classics, this is where things get interesting. Summoner, which is a PlayStation 2 action RPG and a game that I have not thought of in a long time. Maybe that's the fun part about the classic section, is when you scroll through it for PlayStation Blog, a lot of times you're reminded of a game that you saw a few times maybe on the Blockbuster shelf when you're looking to rent games. This is one of those titles. All right, I have no idea how this has aged. I have not played this in a long time, so let me know what your thoughts are if you're excited that Summoner's in there. I am excited, though, that Ratchet & Clank Size Matters, this is a PSP Ratchet & Clank game, is in there. That's awesome to have that. And then the one that really caught me off guard, and I'm very happy to see it, Jeanne d'Arc. Now, this is a game from Level 5, and it's a strategy RPG. So when I had this on my PSP back in the day, and it really reminded me of Final Fantasy Tactics. I mean, it even like the art style, kind of the gameplay for it. And at that time, I was also playing Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions on my PSP. So I was really in like tactical RPG mode here. And this one was awesome. So yeah, I completely recommend checking out Jeanne d'Arc. Remember, these classic games, you don't have to be subscribed to PlayStation Plus Premium to play them. You can buy them. So Jeanne d'Arc is a game that I would even recommend buying, especially if you're a fan of like the tactical or strategy RPGs. It is a very, very good one. So not a bad month, I'd say, looking up and down the lineup here for PlayStation Plus, especially with the premium tier, with the classics. And while I would like to see more of a push on PS2, at least we are getting consistent PS2 releases. A Summoner, again, we'll see. I don't necessarily think that one's going to pull me in, but I certainly will be firing up Jeanne d'Arc to check that out, especially with all the little additions they have with the up rendering and I guess trophy support as well. So fun stuff there. Next up, let's talk about some Bloodborne Remake or Bloodborne Remaster Hopium, which is just a never-ending cycle at this point. It's been teased so many times, just in general, references to Bloodborne from official accounts with Sony or weird glitches and things that are happening in apps. I feel like something is going on with Bloodborne somewhere in the background, because like PlayStation Stars was gone for a month. Sony didn't even really explain why it was gone for a month, but it is back now. And the first thing this app does is give Bloodborne fans hope, because you can see over on the Reddit for Bloodborne, yes, it says Bloodborne PlayStation 5. And naturally, people got really excited here. I mean, it exploded online all over social media. I saw it on like Twitter X, and people were talking about it, like, look at this. It accidentally leaked Bloodborne on the PS5. I mean, technically, Bloodborne works on the PS5 right now, but if you tap on the icon here, it just takes you to the PS4 version of Bloodborne. So unfortunately, I would be going with a visual error on this one. It's just, for some reason, PlayStation Stars decided that it was going to come back with a vengeance to put the PS5 logo on Bloodborne just to mess with everyone. And it is funny because Sony got this application, this rewards program back, and that's the first thing it does is give Bloodborne fans hope. I feel like something is going on with this game. It'd be incredible to me if Sony and they weren't able to figure this one out and do some sort of remake or remaster for it, because it desperately needs it. I mean, it's locked to 30 frames. It's a great game, but it'd be even better if they get it to 60 or 120. Even visually speaking, I think it's fine. It's really just that frame rate that's kind of a hang-up for that title right now. So here's hoping it is something that happens in the future, because we just see so many teases and accidental glitches and things that are happening. This fan base is just completely running on hopium at this point. So maybe we get that payoff here soon. We'll see. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a new Double Dragon game that was announced, and this is kind of a strange one. So when I first saw this pop up online, I was excited because Arc System Works was immediately attached to it. Double Dragon Revive. All right, Arc System Works. I'm thinking, it's this cel-shaded look. Well, you can see this tweet here. This is from a page of Famitsu. And the screenshots don't exactly line up with what I was expecting, as it looks like they're taking a more realistic approach maybe to Double Dragon. And okay, so Double Dragon Revive, it's on PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, PC, and it will launch in 2025. It's gonna have updated controls, difficulty settings for the modern era, and they do say they're going to utilize Arc System Works' fighting game development experience. And just looking at the visual style of it, kind of the realistic approach, maybe if they're just going for a more like dark and gritty kind of game, I don't know. Otherwise, it starts to look maybe a little cheap, I guess. These are smaller images, of course, in a magazine, and it could look different when it's blown up and you're actually playing it, and maybe it's running at, like, I assume 60 FPS and stuff. Double Dragon is a game that I do feel like could get that revival treatment, again, the Double Dragon Revive, as they call it here, and I feel like it should work. It's a basic formula, right? It's an action beat-em-up style game, and for the most part, the gameplay there that worked back in the 8-bit or 16-bit days still works now, but not necessarily with this kind of scale, I guess. Usually it's like the smaller, way-forward style games, and that's been fine. So I'm curious how this works out with Arc System Works. They're very good, obviously, with like the fighting game setup, and I feel like maybe a missed opportunity here when it comes to the art style, but who knows? It's not coming out to next year. Maybe it does show up, and it's an awesome experience in terms of gameplay, and while, again, the art style not necessarily lining up with what I was expecting, could actually still work out there too. So hey, it's fun seeing a new Double Dragon game get announced. I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that it ends up being a very good Double Dragon game. We'll see. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, have you ever owned a PSP? Okay, 62% say yes, 38% say no. So in this instance, Sony adding these games to PlayStation Plus Premium for the PSP section, there are gonna be many people who have never played them before, and while they have done up rendering to them so they look better, they still look like PSP games. But that was a really cool time period. The PSP and the DS, and even though the DS obviously wiped the floor with the PSP in terms of sales, like doubling it just about, the PSP still sold like 80 million systems. I think people tend to forget how many systems Sony was able to sell for the PlayStation Portable. Like, it was quite a few. So there is a large library of games to check out there as well. And when I see something like a Jeanne d'Arc go into premium, I'm very hopeful that a lot of other more obscure titles from the PSP will find their way in, and people will discover them for the first time, because I'm sure people even had a PSP. There's probably many games they either didn't get a chance to play or never heard about. So that is why PlayStation Plus Premium with the classics section is so intriguing to me, because I'm always hopeful if there's some sort of curveball of a game that'll be thrown in there one month. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Venom, who says, and this is why they want to stop physical and have everyone rely on their servers to play their games. Unopposed price increases. Well, yeah, absolutely. These platform holders, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, they would prefer you to just buy from them outright from their digital store. They get more money. They don't have to package and ship these things out, and they have full control over it, which does include discounts. And we know, like, Nintendo, for example, not a fan of discounts. Like, they try to keep their games at like that full price as long as possible. But across the board, if you don't have retailers competing with the digital space, then you can make the price whatever you want. I mean, we've seen retailers who will mark down just random new games at times just to get people in the door. Remember the whole thing with Walmart, where every new game that came in, they discounted it like 15 or 20%. Eventually, they stopped doing that, but there was a run there where you were getting games fairly cheap, brand new, day one. So when you start to remove that retail space and that the competitive nature and pricing, yeah, you start to lose out or miss out on just savings, and eventually get to the point where pricing is just whatever the platform holder decides that time. And yeah, it's when we get to $80, $90, maybe even $100 games. That is the big concern, I feel like, when it comes to the all digital future, is the idea that you'd be giving up ownership or control around ownership, but also control around kind of competitive pricing for consumers. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Nintendo's mysterious trailer with Emio? What'd you think when that one popped up online? And then also, what about PlayStation Plus, especially with Premium and some of those classic titles going in? And do you think we're ever going to get a remaster or remake for Bloodborne, or will it just be a never-ending cycle of teases? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.